Today's episode of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is out of this world. Get ready to join me inside a planetarium. The lights and sound and stuff you can do in here would be fantastic. This is going to be really incredible after marijuana is legal.
Well, back in the old days, some planetariums used to do laser light shows, sometimes the patrons coming in, you could tell that they were enhanced, shall we say.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. We've been all over the state of Maine on the show. Maybe it's time to leave the planet. If space is the final frontier, let's go take a look at it. We actually don't have to travel very far. The Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center is right on campus at the University of Maine in Orono. On most Wild Maine episodes, we look at the wildlife around us and some of the wilder things we do for fun. We don't look up very much, and it's time we did. We are right at the 45th parallel, which means that Maine's night sky is not the same sky you might see in the southern states, and it's nothing like you would see in the southern hemisphere. It turns out there are a lot of things to see and do at this Astronomy Center. Programs for adults, programs for kids, things to play with. Sean Lotch is director of the Astronomy Center. Let's take the tour and see what we've been missing. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. As we start the tour, we're in the classroom/lunch area. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you so much.
Can you once again pronounce your name for me?
Yes, it's Lotch.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's spelled like a cat walked over a keyboard.
Yes, it is one of those strange German names. That the double L and then the TSCH sort of messes people up. I always say, think of watch and put an L there instead. That's the easiest way to think of it.
Now, what is your title here at Emera?
I'm the director of the Emera Astronomy Center.
And after we started talking about my coming over to do a Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine episode, I saw your name in the paper. Famous things are happening with you. What's going on?
So January 1st, I started as the president for the International Planetarium Society. It's an organization I've been involved with for several years. For the next 2 years, I'll be president of that organization. So I'll be doing some traveling, some speaking in a variety of places around the globe regarding astronomy, education, and the use of planetariums to do that.
And all that traveling will mostly take place on this planet.
Yes, all on this planet so far.
Okay.
It's international, not interstellar yet. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Well, there's this whole thing called the Emera Astronomy Center.
Yes.
That's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's not just one thing. It's a collection of things, and I don't understand it all.
Right. So originally we had the Jordan Planetarium, and when the facility was rebuilt, basically in 2014, it opened in October, they decided to sort of enlarge the operations, you might say. So we have the planetarium, which is a digital dome, and we'll be talking a little bit about that and some of its capabilities. We also have a multi-purpose room and classroom area that we use for undergraduate labs. We use it for students when they come to the planetarium on field trips, can use this area to do hands-on activities, have their lunches, things like that. We have a little lobby area that has a couple interactive exhibits where you can weigh yourself on the other planets in the solar system. If you want to get light, I always tell folks go to Mars or the Moon. If you want to get heavy, you can go to Jupiter or the Sun or things like that. But we have a couple little interactive.
What an easy way to lose weight. I could just go to a different planet.
Exactly, yeah. So I always tell folks, we really don't lose weight, we lose mass, but that's a whole other story. So, and then we have out back, we have 2 observatories. One that is operational right now, which is the Jordan Observatory, and that's used primarily by undergraduate and graduate students for research projects in astronomy here at the university. And then we're in the process of relocating the historic Clark Refracting Telescope to that area as well, and if all goes well, sometime late spring we'll have that open for the public and be able to do observing after our Friday evening public planetarium programs.
So altogether,
special events.
What you really have is a planetarium, which you can do major shows, displays, and things like that for a large segment of the public. You've got 2 telescopes, which we'll get into. One's, I think, an historic refractor. The other's a reflector.
Yes.
I'm getting that right. You've got this classroom area where we're standing right now, and you can have school groups, even youngsters, come in here and get an experience with the universe.
Yeah, we have programs for basically all ages, starting from actually pre-K and going all the way on up through general public. So we have on Friday evenings we have a regular public program at 7 o'clock, and that's sort of geared for general audiences. And so the one coming up this month is From Earth to the Universe, where we take a look at some of the major discoveries in astronomy over the last couple centuries, and primarily since the invention of the telescope, and share that with people. And then we always, with all of our programs, we include a live tour of the night sky and a little update on things that are happening in astronomy. Then Sunday afternoons at 2 o'clock, we always have a special children's program. The current one coming up is called Magic Treehouse Space Mission, and in that one it's based on the books of Mary Pope Osborne, who's a children's writer, and this basically takes them on a journey that explores a couple different questions in astronomy, and it's fun for younger children. So we always have sort of a Friday evening general audience show and then a Sunday afternoon show geared for younger children. But we do have programs, and we change those monthly, and a number of those programs, of course, go all the way down to kindergarten age. Like we have a Sesame Street show, which will share the night sky day and night with really young kids like pre-K and K sort of age group, and then going all the way up to, of course, our regular adult shows. We also do a science lecture series, typically the first Thursday of each month, where we're using the dome to explore sciences outside of astronomy. Because one of the things with the planetarium is, now that we're digital, we can do a lot more than astronomy. Astronomy is still a strength, but we can use it to visualize other types of sciences. So we've had, for instance, we had a bioengineer come in and talk about proteins and how they're being used to explore cures for diseases like Alzheimer's and other things like that. We had someone from the gaming world come in and talk about science visualization and how that is being done to help people understand, complicated science topics. We had Paul Majewski from the Climate Change Institute here at Maine. He came in and we looked at, climate change, and we actually are working with them to bring climate change data direct to the dome to be able to display it in a very dramatic way for the general public. And visualization really can help in understanding. So we're really trying to use this as a visual medium to hook people on science, not just astronomy, but of course earth sciences and all types of other sciences as well.
So if you were always thinking of a planetarium as being a place to just go in, sit and look at star displays over your head, it's much more than that now.
Yeah, it's changed dramatically. Really, planetariums started to go digital around the year 2000, and in the last 10 years in particular, the technology has really allowed us to do so much more. Now, instead of just looking at a ground-based view of the sky, we can actually take you on a simulated flight from Earth all the way out to the edge of the universe, and through actual astronomical data sets. So it makes it a totally different experience than the planetariums that you and I experienced when we were children, for instance. So.
All the excitement you used to have to go to Orlando to get, now you can just do it in Orono.
Yeah, in some ways, that is true. Yeah.
My guest is Sean Lotch, director of the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center. In a few minutes, we'll be stepping inside the domed amphitheater. Prepare to be amazed. But first, let's go over exactly how you can use this place. What can adults do? What can kids do? We'll tackle that next. Play a few games, get a little embarrassed, and then go look at the stars. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. It's Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Sean Lotch is director of the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center at the University of Maine. The center is a bunch of things. It's a planetarium, a couple of major telescopes, a classroom for kids. We'll be heading inside the planetarium shortly. But let's make sure we're on the same page about how school kids could use this place. Well, we are standing right now in what would be the classroom. When a school group comes in, let's say it's a sixth grade group, is that typical of what you would get? Or it could be anywhere from first grade on up, or what?
Yeah, we pretty much, we can get them all the way from pre-K all the way up to high school. I would say the bulk of the students we see tend to be in elementary and middle school. We do get some high school groups, but that's typically more challenging because of busing and their schedules. But yeah, we'll get all ages of students.
All right, so you get, let's say, a sixth grade class in here. Do you have a canned presentation you're going to give them, or is it customized for each class, or is there a range of things teachers can select from?
Yeah, we have a kind of a catalog of programs online and geared for different age groups, and then the teachers can take a look at that and choose which program they want. That program, of course, will have a live piece that we that we introduce things to the students, and we'll talk with them and give them a chance to ask questions and things like that as well, because we don't want it to be just a movie experience or something like that. The full dome video does immerse and surround them, but we always want to make it more than just a video presentation, so that the live presenter is a really key portion of all of our planetarium programs here. The other thing we try to do is, with each program, we try to tailor it a little bit to the experiences and being here in Maine. So, for instance, there's a program called The Space and Back that I brought in spring, and we're using that a lot, actually, the 6th grade audience. We had 2 6th grade groups in earlier today, so during that just came in and saw To Space and Back. And that program looks at going into space and the benefits of space technology that we use in our everyday lives. So to augment that show, we actually looked at what are we doing here in Maine, and most folks don't realize that Maine actually has a lot of connections to the space industry and space exploration. So
go slow, because I don't know that either. So.
Oh, sure.
So what is our connection?
So to give you a couple examples of things here on campus, Dr. Alia Betty over at the Wireless Sensing Network just had a payload launch to the International Space Station back on December 8th. And he and his students have developed a special sensor to detect leaks in space habitats. And so they have launched it. It's the first payload from Maine to go to the International Space Station. And it will be searching for these leaks, and we'll be having a presentation coming up on that in March in terms of the actual results from that device, which is going to be installed on the space station and collect data for a couple months.
So when you say space habitats, you're talking about experiments that are going on inside the space station, not what's happening outside.
Right. Well, in this case...
Not a heck of a lot living out there.
Yeah, right. In this case, it's looking at detecting leaks within that, and that will be useful not just for the space station, but also one of the things in the future is going to be, of course, inflatable habitats for the moon or for Mars. And so this technology will be very important in future exploration of space as well. Another example here at the UMaine sort of advanced composite structures area, they're testing something called the HIAD, which is a hypersonic altitude inflatable decelerator. That's a mouthful. Basically, it's a device to help slow a payload package for landing on a planet with a small amount of atmosphere, like Mars. So it's sort of a set of inflatable concentric rings for landing a payload, but they work with NASA, and actually UMaine has the largest area available to test this type of structure. So again, there are a bunch of things. We have Peter Homer. There's a company called Flagsuit LLC, which is out of Southwest Harbor, Maine. He took a NASA challenge some years ago to develop a space glove more mobile than the ones that NASA uses. He actually came up with a glove that had 50% more mobility than NASA gloves. He's now doing space gloves for NASA, but also for SpaceX. So there's a lot of local ties here in Maine to space exploration. And we always want to do that with some of our programs, because we think it's important to showcase that, Maine is important in that area. And there's Jessica Muir. She's an astronaut from Caribou, Maine, who was selected in the most recent astronaut candidates. And today, if you were actually watching, there was live video about this spacewalk taking place on ISS. She actually was inside mission control at NASA, helping with that process. So again, Maine is actually very involved in space exploration, and most folks don't think of it. But so with all of our programs, we like to build a tie-in that shows our local connections and really makes it more relatable to people. Why should we care about space? Well, there's a lot of things, from our cell phones that have a camera inside, which that was developed for astronomy purposes, to a whole variety of other technologies. And if you've ever had a surgery, a lot of the plastics developed for space exploration now are involved in surgeries. So again, there's all these different, GPS, you name it. There's hundreds of technologies that we use in our everyday lives we don't think about that often have come from space research and space exploration.
Certainly, that whole leak detection thing, I think, is fascinating, because if I were in an inflated dome on Mars, the last thing I would want to hear is
Exactly. And actually, one of the reasons that's really cool is you wouldn't hear it, because the noise, the pitch of the noise is actually too high to be heard by human ears. So that's another reason that this is an important technology. And it was developed, again, here at UMaine.
Even when you're just doing stargazing, we have a different perspective than somebody at a southern latitude. You know, the sky we see is not the same sky everybody else does. We're at the 45th parallel. Where the North Star is in the heavens is going to be different here than it is somewhere else.
Sure. For us, being at 45, of course, that means that the North Star is halfway between the horizon and the zenith. If you went to the North Pole, it'd be directly overhead. If you went to the equator, it would be at the horizon. And, of course, if you go below the equator, you don't see a North Star, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is one of those things, and it is, you know, something that we always like to explore and look at in great detail and being able to study. So that's why you have telescopes that are located actually around the globe, is so that you can get those different perspectives and study different objects.
Yep. Well, I just want people to think that, you know, when we talk about Bob Duchesne's wild Maine, the Maine we see, the sky we see, is different than it is everywhere else. I mean, it's unique to us in some ways.
It is. Yeah, everyone at the same latitude
Yeah,
will see the same sky. But we are very lucky here. We have very dark skies. Really, for the Northeast, Maine is one of the darkest places. And there's so much, you know, of course, light that is reflecting up into the sky and that can create problems for stargazing. And Maine is very lucky. We still have really good skies. So I'm always encouraging people, hey, if you live here in Maine, get outside and take advantage of it, because if you live someplace else, that's not always the case. If you're in, you know, Chicago, or if you're in New York or whatever, you're not going to see the sky like we see it here. So we really do have incredible views of our night sky.
Fact is, we can beat Boston University, Boston College in both dark sky and hockey.
There you go.
Well, I want to walk around and see stuff
Sure.
and touch stuff. So
Definitely.
that.
We can do that.
Coming up, it's time to walk and touch stuff. I'm at the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center at the University of Maine in Orono. Sean Loch is the director. In a moment, I'll find out how much I weigh on the moon and discover what is the 8th largest object in the solar system. Spoiler alert, I'll get it wrong. Then we'll go into a planetarium and really get wowed. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Every hour of every day on the station is dedicated toward helping the Patriots win the Super Bowl, except when this show is on the air. We're getting a little wild inside the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center at the University of Maine. Sean Loch is the director, and he's showing me around. And we've reached that part of the show where we walk and I get to touch stuff.
We have a place where you can actually walk and
watch and touch stuff.
yeah, you can actually, of course, measure your weight on the planets in the solar system. So, of course, if you step up on the scale here,
this can't be good.
and then of
I've
course,
been avoiding scales ever since the holidays.
yeah. So then, if you want to get lighter, we can take you to, for instance, the moon. And now if we do that, you'll see that on the moon you would only be, well, I'll let you say it, but, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to claim I'm 30 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
The scale is wrong.
You know, so that's on the moon. So, you know, and of course you can, if you touch the button again, you can go back and then you can try another one.
Earth, we already know. Venus, I would be what on Venus?
So probably pretty close.
Yep. That says.
Yeah, it's pretty.
We're not all that different than Venus. Venus is a little smaller, but
right. We're nearly the same size, except there, of course, the average temperature is about 900 degrees Fahrenheit, so twice the size of your oven. It rains sulfuric acid and 90 times the pressure of Earth. So not a great place to live.
Yeah.
But in terms of the gravitational factor, yes, it's very similar.
But they never ever have to shovel the driveway. So
No, that is true.
All right, I got to go over to this one right here. The space trivia. Tap here to play.
Yeah. So this is a little game that actually was created in-house by some of our grad students, and it has around 200 questions, so you could spend a lot of time here. But basically, it'll cycle through all these different questions about things in the sky. So
I'm just going to do two. What is it? And I want to see if I get them right.
All right. Well,
and then I'm not going to embarrass myself.
I won't give you any more hints.
What is the name of the sun's apparent path through the sky over the year? Is it the celestial equator, the solar line via Sol, or the ecliptic? And I'm going to say it's the ecliptic. And I'm correct.
Yes.
All right. I'll chance one more.
All right. And then it gives you a little bit more of a description after that. So
the path goes all the way through basically all the signs of the zodiac. And that's what people probably don't even know. The signs of the zodiac are following that, basically the ecliptic around the sun. Yep. All right, what is the 8th largest object in our solar system? Ganymede, Titan, Mercury, Pluto. It's not Pluto. It's not Mercury. I'm going to go with Titan. Incorrect, it's Ganymede. Damn it. I'm not playing this anymore. All right.
Yep. So,
wander over towards the planetarium.
Sure. So yeah, we have a set of double doors here just so that when people enter, it doesn't ruin their night vision.
Oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, so of course it is a lot different than the old planetarium. A lot of folks who come now are like, oh, this is different, and it is.
Well, it is, yeah.
Of course, the old dome was level, and this dome is tilted at about 15 degrees, so we have just a slight tilt on it. And we have 50 seats in here. The old dome was, I believe, an 8-meter or 24-foot dome, and this is a 10-meter, so we're about 33 feet or so in size. So a little bit larger. We have 50 seats. And then, again, it is digital, so we can project other things. So this is kind of our standard walk-in. You sort of see our logo up there, our schedule of upcoming public programs. So I mentioned the one that for this month is From Earth to the Universe. Now, if you're a Star Wars fan, February is a great month to come and visit us because our public program on Friday nights during the month of February is a show called Stars. It looks at the life cycles of stars. It's narrated by Mark Hamill, who is the original Luke Skywalker.
Cool.
But even more fun than that, we actually have a partnership that month with the Bangor Symphony Orchestra. They'll be doing mini concerts here in the planetarium prior to each of those showings of stars. So they'll do like a 10 to 15 minute mini concert. So they'll have one of their quartets, their youth symphony orchestra. Basically each week we'll have a little bit different group with them playing part of the music of Star Wars because they're doing an event, the music of Star Wars, on March 3rd and 4th. So we're sort of working in partnership and collaboration with them on that. So it's one of the fun things. One of the things we've really been working here at the planetarium is to do partnerships with other groups. We have one coming up in April with the Bangor Public Library, for instance. They're doing an exhibit on the origin of man, and we're actually going to be doing a program on the life of Charles Darwin and how he figured out natural selection. So again, it shows the way that we can use the planetarium to explore a topic like evolution. So again, we do use it for different things. I mentioned, of course, the climate change program we did as well, and we've done some stuff there. We have a children's program called The Life of Trees, which takes a look at the importance of trees in the environment, for instance. And so again, we do a variety of different things. And then the other side, sort of opposite our schedule, we're promoting our next science lecture series. The next one coming up is going to be on February 2nd.
Yeah, let's stress that. There's a bunch of different things that happen for different age groups and different technical abilities and understandings.
Right.
What this is going to be about is pretty darn brainy.
Yeah. So our next science...
I may come to this.
Our next science lecture is a very interesting topic. It actually is a topic that won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry this last year. It's looking at sort of how molecular motors work. And basically...
now, when you say molecular motor, what is that?
Basically, these are... motors, or you can sort of think of them as motors, but they're ways to use molecules to move things around. And they're exploring this technology because it is a way of using sort of micro-scale things to do different tasks. Anywhere from they're exploring it for curing diseases to other possibilities in the future. So again, it is one of those new technologies. It's sort of in its infancy, but they're starting to see that these things could have a variety of real-life applications.
Well, you could really miniaturize something if you can get propulsion down to the size of molecules.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's one of the things that they'll be doing is looking at sort of different molecules and how some of these things work. There's a couple different processes that they have. Some of them are doing an actual mechanical type of motor-like structure, and others of them are more chemical in nature. But he'll be exploring that in some detail, and that's one of the fun things. So that tends to be geared for audiences that have a deeper interest in science, you might say. Our public programs are geared for general audiences. I typically say sort of age 12 and up, if you will. And again, they change all the time. And then we also have our children's programs Sunday afternoons at 2. And when school groups contact us, we have, like I say, we have a list of over 20 different programs that they can select from, and tailored to their need. And if they don't find something on the list, we can work with them to build a special presentation.
I'm inside the Emera Planetarium, and we're about ready to fire this bad boy up. The sky's the limit on this episode of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, as director Sean Loch shows me around a planetarium that is so new it wasn't even around 2 years ago. Hang on a few minutes until we get back, and then really hang on, because on today's show, gravity is overrated. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're going real wild today. I'm inside the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center at the University of Maine. Sean Loch is the director, and he's showing me around. I've got to try to describe this room we're in. This is the planetarium, and it's a huge dome ceiling that tilts in one direction. It's not directly overhead. The big open dome space is sort of ahead of you a little bit from where the seats are, so that you're not craning your neck directly overhead.
Right.
And you can project the night sky or just about anything you want to on this enormous dome screen above us. The lights and sound and stuff you can do in here would be fantastic. This is going to be really incredible after marijuana is legal.
Well, back in the old days, some planetariums used to do laser light shows, sometimes the patrons coming in, you could tell that they were enhanced, shall we say. But it is sort of an interesting thing. And the dome is about 33 feet in diameter. And we are tilted down 15 degrees, as you mentioned, so it sort of goes down in front of you a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to explore.
I am so going to do this.
And
I've been wanting to do this for years.
Sure.
I've never found my way over here, and I'm so glad I did, because this is amazing in here. I was not prepared. I was not prepared for this. I've been in planetariums before, but this is like a wow factor of 10.
Yeah, it's a lot different, like I say, compared to the old planetariums where you just had... And one thing that you'll see that's conspicuously missing if you have been to the old planetarium is, in the old days, the planetariums would have a projector in the very center of the room, and that was a special projector to do the night sky called a star projector, of course. And it had to be placed exactly in the center of the room so that it could project accurately on this dome. Nowadays, you'll notice there's seats in the center of the dome. We've regained that space for seats, and it doesn't block the view like it would in some places in old planetariums. But basically, our projectors are actually behind the screen. So there's one down in the very front and another projector. So there's two projectors here that create the full dome image.
Yeah, I can't see a projector anywhere. So it's
right.
hidden.
Yeah, so they are hidden a little bit. But there's basically two, one that's directly in front of people and one that's directly behind. That creates a seamless image. There's two projectors, but each projector has 4 channels of video. So we actually run a cluster of 10 computers to run the theater. There's 8 image generators. There's a master, which sort of communicates and locks everything together, and there's an audio computer, of course, for sound. And so by using that, we can create the seamless image that you see on the dome above you. With audio, we can do real-time models. We can also do, of course, playback video and things like that. Well, let me show you some cool stuff as well. I'm gonna let you hold this for a second.
Okay, I got it.
Just because I'm gonna have to. And I'll just show you a couple trailers here, just to give you some ideas of some of the types of things we can do. And I'm going to start off by showing you the trailer of a program called Dynamic Earth. And this is a program that we actually used in November to talk about, of course, our climate.
Planet Earth. I'm Liam Neeson. Join me on a journey into the workings of Earth's great life support system.
So you can kind of see, for instance, this program here, and the full-length program was, of course, about 25 minutes, and then we add stuff from the Climate Change Institute here at Maine to it. But you get an idea. The video basically surrounds you and immerses you in that environment. It can make you feel like you're under the ocean, swimming with these creatures. It can, make you feel like you're flying into the eye of a hurricane. So that's one of the really cool things about, the dome. It's what we call immersive. And you may be hearing a little bit about that in terms of, virtual reality. This is sort of like that, but instead of a singular experience, because with VR, you put on a headset and it's a one-person thing, this is sort of a shared experience. It's kind of like I mentioned, there's, you can watch a movie on your TV at home, or if you really, certain movies, they're so much better if you go to a theater like Star Wars or Star Trek or something like that, where you're in that large audience and the screen is larger than life. And that's sort of what we do here. In our case, though, it wraps all the way around you. So it's not just in front of you, it actually surrounds you and immerses you in that video. And that's one of the special things that new planetariums can really do. And I'm going to load up something else here real quick.
Now, I didn't even ask you, but for these programs, do you charge, and can you buy season tickets?
So we don't have a season ticket thing right now. I've been working to see if we can come up with a membership program. So I am in discussion with the university about doing that. We do charge. Our regular rates are $6 for adults.
Is that all?
Yeah.
I'm going to do every one of these.
Yeah. So it's very reasonable. Yeah, they're very reasonable. It's $6 for adults. It's $5 for Maine students, senior citizens, or veterans.
Yep. How old do you have to be a senior citizen?
65.
Oh,
and then and $4 for children 12 and under. So I'm going to set up something here. I'm going to load up a model and of the International Space Station, since I chatted about that a little bit earlier today. So what you're seeing now is a model of the International Space Station above the Earth. And to give you an idea, we have control of this model, so we can move around. We can move around this model, look at different things. So,
which is what you're doing right now. You're actually moving the space station around on the screen.
Yeah, I'm using my mouse basically to control that and be able to look at it from different angles. We can also zoom in and things like that, zoom out, explore. So when we did the launch party with Dr. Ali Abedi back in December for the sensors that they were sending there, we basically were able to fly up to the area of the space station where they're going to install those. And he was able to talk to everyone and say, so this is the area of the space station where it's going to be installed, here's how it's going to work, all those types of things. And so that's one of the nice things we can do. And of course, you see the Earth there in the background as well. We have basically models of, in terms of astronomy purposes, everything from Earth out to the edge of the universe. So we can fly you to Mars, we can take you to Jupiter, we can take you sort of all over, you might say, to the sun, to other stars, other galaxies even, using the system. So it's really kind of a cool tool for being able to do things like this. Let me go ahead and take that down. And I mentioned to you, of course, other sciences. So I've shown you a couple, sort of earth science and astronomy.
Show me something you can get on YouTube, like puppies playing.
Well, I don't necessarily have puppies playing. I don't have that necessarily.
What a jip.
But to give you an idea of something that's kind of fun, I'll show you a little clip of video. I'll show you a little video clip here that actually used in one of our other science lecture talks. We had Caitlin Howell, who's a bioengineer here, talking about the protein database and a little bit about how proteins are being used to explore possible cures for diseases. And we had a clip of video that was made from a program that looks at basically how cells work. Is a little clip from that. And what you're seeing right now is you're inside of a cell, and the object in front of you that sort of looks like it's walking on a long line there and carrying something behind it. It's actually called a protein walker, and those are actually inside of our cells. You wouldn't think about it, but they carry.
So there's something like that inside each one of my cells,
yes,
walking stuff along.
Yes, okay. That moves different chemicals and moves different things within the cell structure.
God, this is just way cooler than anything I see on Netflix.
So it does give you a little bit of an idea just of some of the types of things we can do. And of course, we can do the classical things, and we do include the night sky, so we can show you, of course, the sky from Earth and talk about the stars and constellations, what planets are visible. We always include that with each of our programs, sort of, in terms of bringing it back to the planetarium in that regard. But again, we can do so much more in terms of, taking you to places and flying you around. We did a special thing when there was the Pluto encounter, of course, here, where, we were able to show the New Horizons spacecraft and, and then update the imagery and put the new imagery up and show people, what that spacecraft saw.
Okay, your personal opinion, is Pluto a real planet?
That's a good question. So, yeah, it's a dwarf. It's a dwarf.
That goes against everything I learned growing up.
I know. But it is one of those things, a lot of folks it does. I always tell folks, though, just because it's not a planet doesn't mean it's not part of our solar system. It is. Right. It's just that we've discovered a whole bunch of other things out there that are as large as Pluto, or in some cases larger. And but so, it's now a dwarf planet. It's been demoted, as we often say.
Careful, he'll hear you.
Yes, exactly.
We'll take a break and spend the next 3 minutes mourning that Pluto is no longer a planet. Meanwhile, we've got to get out of the planetarium and spend a few moments talking about the two big telescopes here. One of them is purely for scientific research, but the other one is something you get to use, and it's 100 years old. I'm at the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center, University of Maine. Sean Lotch is the director, and we're headed toward the scopes. Meet you there. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and the station is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Today, we're going beyond the wild blue yonder. I'm at the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center at the University of Maine in Orono. Sean Lotch is the director. The point of today's show is that all this stuff here is for you. They have programs for adults, programs for kids, some really high-tech stuff to play with, and a 100-year-old telescope that can still make you say, wow. So obviously the newer telescope is already there under its dome. The other one, the old vintage one, is going to be moving over here from the other side of the campus. They're two very different ones, and you mentioned the one that the students use doesn't have an eyepiece.
Right. So modern research telescopes, people don't sit and stare through anymore. They have instrumentation attached to them, normally a CCD camera, a photometer, things like that. And so the telescope we have back there is a 20-inch plane wave telescope. It's a type of refractor, or reflector, excuse me.
Well, let's just stop right there. What's the difference between a refractor and a reflector? Because not everybody knows.
Right. Reflectors use mirrors, and refractors use lenses. So if you think of binoculars basically are two refracting telescopes mounted side by side, if you will. With reflectors, they use mirrors, and there's several different types. You have a classical Newtonian, where the light comes in from the top, hits the mirror at the bottom, bounces up almost to the top again, and then comes out through an eyepiece. This one, the plane wave, is more of like a Cassegrain design. So light comes in, strikes the primary mirror, comes up to a secondary mirror in the middle, and then back down. What that allows is that you can basically fold that light over, making a long focal length telescope in a short tube.
And the point of all this is to gather as much light as possible.
Yes.
So the bigger the mirror, the bigger the lens, the more light you can gather.
Exactly. So that 20-inch, of course, is a decent-sized telescope, and it was, up until about 2 months ago, the largest in the state.
Who's beating you now?
Colby College, actually. They've installed, we have a 20-inch and they have a 28-inch that they've just recently installed there. They don't have the planetarium, though, so we go back and forth about that. But we're actually talking about partnering with them on some observing projects, because they also have a plane wave, and so there's some ways that we can work together to do some things.
Well, just so I can get perspective, what can they see with the 28-inch that you can't see with the 20?
They'll go a little bit. They'll be able to get a little bit fainter in terms of magnitude. So some galaxy stuff they'll be able to do a little bit better than we can. Again, the more diameter you have, the fainter you can see, and every inch counts. So it is one of those things. But our telescope out here, we have a research group. There's a number of undergraduate and graduate students who have been using it. We have a group of students that have been working on some galaxy research. There's been some that have been working on some exoplanet stuff. One has been looking at characterizing asteroids and asteroid rotations. One is doing the supernova search. So there's a variety of different projects that can be done with this telescope. And they do use it as part of the research. So the telescope actually is controllable remotely, which is what a lot of observatories are now. So, one can log into it and set it up for viewing on the sky and then collect the data.
Well, it strikes me there's two really good advantages to that. First of all, one of the problems you always have or have had in the past when you're in an observatory like that is trying to stay warm in a winter night with the dome open.
Yeah.
If you don't have to actually be in there, you could be somewhere warm looking at a screen. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and the modern research observatories are doing that too to a large extent. Even Mauna Kea, where I worked for some years, basically, they have people. There are some people up at the telescope, but they're inside control rooms versus being out at the telescope itself now. So that telescope really is a research telescope. Then what we are working on is right next to it. There's sort of an area right now that basically looks like a bunch of steel beams. That's going to be a roll-off roof observatory. That's going to be where the Clark telescope gets relocated to. The Clark is a refractor, so basically you have two lenses, and that one is a historic refractor. The optics are wonderful on it. It's 8 inches in diameter.
When you say historic, how old?
It was originally installed here at the university around 1905, I believe. So it is, quite old.
Well, for a refractor, technology did not change a heck of a lot over the centuries.
Well, no, and actually, right now, most modern research telescopes are reflectors because basically Yerkes Bay, Wisconsin, has the world's largest refractor, which is about 40 inches. And
That's a huge lens.
It is huge, but when you compare it to the telescopes, like I mentioned on Mauna Kea, where you have 8 and 10 meter and 30 meter telescope is being constructed, 30 meters versus 40 inches is a big difference.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that telescope is still really wonderful for viewing, and the building it was in over basically by the student union, there's a lot of light there, and the building itself was having some issues with leaking. So what we've done is we're in the process of building a roll-off roof type of observatory. So it won't have a dome. It will basically be a flat structure. The whole roof will slide back to reveal the telescope, and then you'll be able to look at it. And there's a number of observatories that are built that way, particularly for telescopes that you're going to use for visual astronomy, which is what that one will be used for, because then you can see a bit more of the sky. It makes it easier to point the telescope when you're looking for things as well. So basically what you're seeing from our vantage point here is the right side of that building, and you see sort of the beams. The right side is going to be where the telescope will be, and the left side, which actually looks like it's a little bit longer, that's basically the area where the roof will roll back and then just sit on that area there.
Well, of course, as always, this is all about me. So what's in it for me? How am I going to be able to play with these toys?
So with the roll-off roof telescope, we're hoping that will be ready sometime in late spring, and then the plan is to open it up to the public after our public planetarium programs on Friday nights, and then for special observing events when something special happens in the sky.
Because over the years, that telescope's been used for that purpose.
Yes.
There's been a lot of opportunities in the past for people to come up and actually look through it.
Right. And about 2 years ago, I guess, is when it sort of they kind of shut it down because of the building and some other things, and so we've been waiting to get it relocated here. And so that was actually when I started in January of last year. That was the first thing they said is we want to work on moving this telescope, and so started working with facilities here and a variety of folks on campus to help get that going. But yeah, so we're looking forward to being able to open that to the public. We have a couple other smaller telescopes that we can roll out that are stored in the other observatory that we use for astronomy labs that we'll also be able to use with the general public then too. So it'll be really nice to have and be able to do some observing here after our public programs, and then whenever there's something special happening in the night sky.
Well, in the little time we have left, let's go over a couple of the basics on how people can get to know you and the whole planetarium. Once again, there are programs coming up in February that are fascinating. There's that one on molecular motors.
Yep.
That was February 2nd, if I remember right.
Yep, that's our science lecture series. Every Friday night we have our regular public shows. So even in January, of course, we have them. And Sunday afternoons we have our children's programs as well.
Now, how do people find out about these?
So there's a couple ways they can do so. One, of course, is the web. So astro.umaine.edu is our website. Or if you just look up Emera Astronomy Center in a search engine, that it will come up. We're also on Facebook, of course, because everyone is nowadays. But we have a Facebook. It's Jordan Planetarium because it was started back with the old planetarium prior to relocating, so we still have that name. And that's another place that they can find out. Both those places will have our upcoming information about when shows are and things like that. The website, particularly if you're a teacher, you can go there and you can find out about field trips, all the offerings we have for school groups. You can find out about birthday parties, all the other different things we do too. So the website has a lot of information. Facebook, we tend to have more current updates, just short updates about here's our upcoming program, here's what we're doing, or special things that are happening in astronomy. And then recently, starting at the beginning of the year, I'm also doing some blogging with Bangor Daily News, where I'll be doing a little blog on the night sky, what you can see, stars, planets, constellations, things like that. And we'll be having some mentions of the planetarium in there and some of our programming as well. So there's a couple different ways of finding out about us. The science lecture series, I will mention, those do tend to sell out. So if people are interested in the science lecture series, they should get tickets early.
Okay.
Because that is something that because it's a one-time thing in that topic, and again, that does tend to fill up quite fast.
Well, Sean, thank you very much for being on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it from the Emera Planetarium and Astronomy Center at the University of Maine. My thanks to Director Sean Blatch. All Friday night shows start at 7 and last an hour. The next 2 Friday nights will be a program titled From Earth to the Universe. On Friday nights in February, everything you ever wanted to know about stars. That's the one narrated by Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker from Star Wars. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. We'll return next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 8. And remember, all shows are archived at 929theticket.com. This is Sports Radio 929 The Ticket.